Baltimore City Council Budget and Appropriations Committee, we're back for City Council Ordinance 23-0381, Ordinance of Estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. I'm Eric Costello, Councilman from the 11th District. I'm joined to my right by Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer, 5th District, member of the committee, Councilman Tony Glover, 13th District. To my left, Councilwoman Odette Ramos, 14th District, Councilman Chris Burnett, 8th District, member of the committee, Councilman Ryan Dorsey, 3rd District, member of the committee. To my left is Tony. Tony, say your last name for me. Leva. Tony Leva. He's staff to the committee. We have representatives from the mayor's office as well as the council president's office. And we have now the Mayor's Office of Minority and Women-Owned Small Business Development. Do you have an acronym for that?
We're going to be rebranded with a new name, so there is going to be another acronym.
And a catchy acronym?
It's not quite as catchy as MBOO. It's a little hard to roll off the tongue, but we're going to have a new name coming next month.
We're looking forward to that, Director. How many slides do you have in your slide deck?
I just have 3 slides and just a brief opening before I get into the slides.
So what we're going to do, we'll turn it over to you. If you could introduce everyone that you have from your team and then run through your deck, and we'll take questions from the council.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon to the other members of the committee as well. My name is Christopher Lundy. We're currently the Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office in the Law Department, but we are going to be moving to be the Mayor's Office of Minority and Women's Business Development. And as I stated, we'll be rebranding next month when we start the new fiscal year. I have to my left, Deputy Stephen Campbell is with me. Just to give a little backdrop of where we are in process, the Mayor's Office of Minority and Women's Business Development merged into MBOO within the Law Department in fiscal year 2023 budget. And we've been working throughout this year to undertake the merging of our personnel and operations and web presence, really so we can promote a one-stop shop for local small minority and women-owned businesses that's able to give them advisement about upcoming opportunities, the certification and compliance to be certified in Baltimore City as an MWBE, investigations, resources for development, and outreach will all be within our new office. So we will be moving from the Law Department to mayoralty with the fiscal year 24 budget. And our enhancement is premised upon the establishment of this new agency, the combined services, and the need to provide services to the business community in accordance with the city code. With that being said, we're now inclusive of the Small Business Resource Center. This is a physical building where we provide webinars, tutorials, and opportunities for businesses that want to do additional development. We have a similarly situated virtual presence in Baltimore SourceLink, which is, again, a resource library, but it's more so in the digital space, so you don't have to actually physically come in and visit us. This also includes the Baltimore Main Streets program, the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency's Advanced Manufacturing Center is under our umbrella as well. And we'll be providing these equitable access to these opportunities, capital, and working to advocate on behalf of businesses to ensure prompt and fair payment terms, and ensuring that we continue to bring developmental resources to the city community. And with that, let me jump into the slides. So our agency overview, our agency mission, currently with MBOO is we're responsible for overseeing the city's minority and women's business program that's codified in City Code Article 5, Subtitle 28. And this program is necessary to overcome the effects of past discrimination and to prevent ongoing discrimination in the city's contracting process, while we're assuring that we're still maintaining high quality goods and services through the competitive bidding process. And the Minority and Women's Business Program is narrowly tailored, so we do look at contracts on a contract-by-contract basis and look to set goals on every contract in excess of $50,000, and it's limited to our Baltimore City market area, which was set by our recently completed August 2022 disparity study. For our fiscal year 2024 goals, We've already rolled out B2G. B2G now is a fantastic platform that we've been able to bring to the city. They currently host our active certification directory and lets people do their initial certification, renewals, and any sort of expansion of services that they provide, all on that platform. The next step of what we're going to be rolling out citywide is contract compliance in the goal-setting modules. What's important for contract compliance is we're going to be working to have all of the city contracts within the B2G database, and in doing so, that will enable us to get that disparity study level data virtually on demand, where we're going to be able to track all of the contract payments. So not just those for minority and women-owned businesses that have goals, but we're looking to track all of the contracts. So we can see even on a contract that has no MWBE goals, we still want to ensure that those prime contractors and those subs are being paid timely, and that we're seeing the overall spend. By having all of the contracts, we'll be able to see that of course, a very significant portion of minority and women-owned businesses, but we need that overall pie of contracts to see what that percentage is. And that will also set us up when we get to our next disparity study to have that data already in one repository and be able to pass that on to our consultants to come up with our new analysis. The other very, very important module that will be coming on board is goal setting. So that's very important for all the contracts that do have require minority and women's business participation over that $50,000. This will now allow the goal setting to be completely done digitally via the algorithm of the B2G system, where it will be taking all the data in our August 2022 disparity study and set the goals based on the service codes and the stated availability that we found in the last disparity study, so that it'll really give us rock solid goal setting. And this is industry best practices that we utilize both of these to make sure that we're really getting that contract compliance and accurate goal setting. And along those same lines, another goal was to implement the disparity study recommendations, one of which is bringing B2G fully online to the city. Some of the other recommendations involve expanding the market area. Two of the areas that we would be recommended to expand to make the contract, to make the program legally sufficient would be to expand to both Prince George's and Montgomery counties. So that is legislation that will require your cooperation and support in the near future of trying to bring that online. Another recommendation from the report was that is that we also look into race and gender neutral programs. So that's also something that we're going to be working on as well. Right now, we only have the single service. We haven't broken out any of our work within the office to have multiple services, so we're just under the Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office. This budget, we're very, very excited to say, includes an increase of over $3.5 million. This funding is going primarily to our staffing needs to really improve the number of compliance officers and investigators that we have. One of the gains that we're going to get out of having those investigators is being able to go to ongoing construction sites and where contract performance is taking place, and to be able to make sure all of our subcontractors that should be there doing work are present. So that's going to be critical. Also adding additional compliance officers on the certification side to make that go even quicker. And bless you, and importantly on compliance, being in a position where we can actually have the bandwidth to not just look at the numbers at the time it comes to us, but be able to spot check on some of these contracts that we know have been problematic in the past with participation, and ensure that they are on track, and work in even closer partnership with the agencies to make sure that we're identifying issues with performance along the way. So the average days for application review in fiscal year 2022, our actual number was 62. That number, I'm happy to report, it will definitely be dropping dramatically for our FY23, which has a target of 12 days. We are trending slightly higher than the 12 days, but we're well over, I believe, 94% of applications are being completed in under 30 days for certification and for renewal certification. The second performance measure that's listed, the number of training and outreach sessions that have been provided. In FY22, we had 32 sessions that were completed. That's inclusive of our internal and external training and outreach. So that included some of the training we did with the key procuring agencies and capital construction agencies to make sure they were aware of any updates in the MBOO process. Our target for FY23 is 15, and I believe we've already exceeded that so far for our outreach efforts with local organizations and learning opportunities we do for local neighborhood associations, CDCs, things like that, to make sure they're aware of the requirements for the program as well. But we're well on the way of exceeding that target. But that is all I had initially to start with, and I'd love to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Director. I'm going to start at the end. We're going to do committee members, Council Vice President Middleton, then Councilman Schleifer. Dorsey, Burnett, Ramos. Schleifer.
Director, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilman.
Nice meeting you today. Just a question. I was just looking at the budget book, and maybe this is a question for the budget office in case I'm misreading this, but I'm on page 50. And so from fiscal year 2022, it says salaries 452.74, and that's for 7 people, which is $65,000 a person on average. And then on for fiscal year 23, salaries, it says, is $1.6 million for 14 people, which came to $115,000 per person. And then in fiscal year 24, it says $4,017 for 19 people, which comes to $211,000. And so I don't know what the staffing needs are because, this is new to me, and I look forward to learning more. But just on a salary basis, can you just explain, or maybe the budget office can explain why the numbers are equating that way? I mean, I assume all 19 people are not making over $200,000 a year.
No. So the final fiscal number that you're seeing that's equated to salaries is a lot of that is including new positions. So that's where some of that's going. Unfortunately, everybody is not able to be compensated at that level. The other issue that you're seeing is really the combination of the offices from FY22 to 23. That uptick is really us absorbing the Mayor's Office of Minority and Women's Business Development and all of the staff that they had already. So their entire staff was absorbed into our office at the time in Law Department for FY23. So that's where the increase is accounting.
Gotcha. So are these numbers then aren't accurate, the 7, the 14, and the 19? Is it?
Councilman, if I can jump in, if that's okay, Director. It's hard to see you from here. So I wanted to flag that there's pending personnel funding.
I can't hear you so
There's
well.
pending personnel funding in there. So as the director has mentioned, they're working to figuring out staffing up. And so those positions, there will be additional positions that will be coming through. And so there's funding for them to create those positions. But right now, as he said, the offices merged and now they're being made separate. The staffing plan that he's working out in that way is there's funding to add more positions moving forward.
So then how many positions is this $4 million covering versus last year positions that the $1.6 million covered?
So it's going to virtually double the office. We're still finalizing the exact position count as we're working through it, but it's going to get us in the neighborhood of 30 positions.
Gotcha. Okay, so the amount that's listed in the book isn't for 23 and 22 is accurate, but for 24 that's still a working number.
The number is the figure for the salary is accurate. It doesn't reflect all of our positions.
The quantity of positions.
Correct, okay. Because we're going to be adding significant numbers. So that's not like just dividing by the number that are listed currently.
Gotcha.
That's not all like huge increases for everyone.
Okay.
We do have some reclassifications we were able to do, but we're not unfortunately able to compensate at that level.
Okay, so I mean, whenever whenever it is finalized, if you can just let us know whenever that becomes, once you guys figure that out. And then I guess my next question is for the budget office. Within the overall budget going from $650,000 2 years ago to $5.8 million now, the director had mentioned that there was other functions of city government that are coming under the umbrella. Is there cost savings? Are those things reflective in other parts of the budget? Like, where can I see those things getting zeroed out?
Yeah, so that would be the Mayor's Office of Minority and Women's Small Business Development. That was formerly under mayorality. So in last year's budget, fiscal '23, we moved the majority of those funds to MBOO in the law department. So you would have seen that reduction in Service 125 in mayorality. What was left over was just a grant that was there. So this year, in this year's budget, what you will see zeroed out is in laws section where MBOO was previously. Those funds have moved from law to this new office, and that grant and any additional funds that were left over in 125 are also here. So it's not, it's net neutral in that way. The moves are neutral, budget neutral.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. This is a very important office that you're kind of putting together. Could you just give us a few examples of some successful women and minority-owned businesses that you have basically wrapped your arms around and supported and helping to be successful? What are some criteria that you really look for and help to guide them into being successful?
So thank you, Madam Vice President. I'd say in terms of just general criteria, we're just looking to help businesses at this time. We're trying to do as much development in the city as we can. In terms of specific success stories, I'd have to actually harken back to the conversation I was having with Mr. Chairman before we got started with the company.
Sorry, I apologize for coming in late.
No.
So
This
I
is
missed that.
prior
Okay.
to the hearing.
Okay.
But a company like Citywide Youth Development that does a lot to train young people in the city and give them a skill set so that they could go on in the garment industry to either start their own brands or to be able to have the skill set to go into a place like Under Armour and be competitive and have a skill set to do embroidery, to do screen printing and things like that. That's a business that we've seen continue to grow. They started out at now Baltimore Peninsula, formerly Port Covington, and their Impact Village, having a space that was given to them. They started with a sherbet product and have really been able to expand out to their now large image center on North Avenue, and they have additional expansion that's coming. So that's a great business that we've been able to help. I would say a lot of the businesses at Lexington Market, we're very proud of the composition of the vendors there being majority minority and or woman-owned businesses that are there, places like Urban Reeds, places like Harp Vision. Harp Vision is a great success story. They're opening a second location on Pennsylvania Avenue. There's going to be a ribbon cutting on Friday, and they do all sorts of great body butters and candles that are smell fabulous. So they've been people that we've been able to support. Definitely our Main Street neighborhoods, we're trying to as much as we can, really amplify their efforts because we have so many fabulous small business owners in the city, but really making sure that we give them as much support as we can to really bring light on what's in that area and make sure that we're highlighting, even within our main streets, beyond some of the common places that people will speak of. So thinking of places like Waverly that just had the book festival just a few weeks back, and really just highlighting as many things as we can in the city so that we don't have a narrow view on what business is and what success in the city is. I would say in our other, more so certification compliance life, wonderful projects like, of course, Baltimore Peninsula. Now on the MBOO website, we've got their community engagement dashboard powered by Sweeten Enterprise that lets you see the ongoing participation on that project and how many dollars they've specifically given and the specific business that they've paid those dollars to, whether they be minority or women-owned. And if you want to peel back the layers and look at the pilot specifically or something along those lines to see where those dollars went, you can do that. But they've given significant, I don't recall the exact number today, so I don't want to short sell them, but well over $100 million that have gone to minority and women-owned businesses. Also, our beautiful new CFG Bank Arena, that's a project that did have participation goals on it, despite the structure of the deal. And that's another situation where they've been able to do great work and incorporate a lot of businesses. So a lot of what we do on the compliance side is really making sure that people find those small businesses, that we get participation on those contracts, and when there are challenges, that we're there to have the meetings, have the discussions with them to make sure we're assisting. We're very involved with trying to get our small vendors paid and paid promptly, and assisting agencies when they come into difficulties with that process, and make sure that people are truly aware of the impact it's having on a small business compared to a large company like Clark Construction, for example, on the CFG Bank Arena. They have entirely different realm of flexibility with payment than the majority of our small Baltimore vendors have.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that you're connecting with Main Street areas. Particularly, you mentioned Pennsylvania Avenue, and trying to reach beyond places that are near, the downtown area. There's a lot of new areas or little small business areas that want to be now considered main streets, and we have a brand new 17-acre development that's going to be starting in Park Heights near, Pimlico. And we're going to need a lot of help in that area. I share that area with the councilman from the 5th District. That whole area is really trying to expand with, a lot of new outreach just to service that area because of the desert of just about everything and the problems of transportation. So it's important that those areas are really captured, and glad that you're kind of beginning that.
Well, thank you. And I do want to note, in the Park Heights area, we're working heavily with them now to fulfill some commitments that we've made in assisting in economic development in that area. We're going to actually be bringing on a position, a PEM position in FY2024 that's going to be dedicated to economic development in Park Heights. And we're also going to be working with them to complete the process to bring them on as our 9th Main Street in Baltimore.
Right.
The only challenge that I'll say that we do have with Main Streets, generally speaking, is that we obviously provide financial support to those neighborhoods, currently at $35,000 per neighborhood annually, and those are our only limitation on bringing on more neighborhoods, and really making sure that we have all the economic viability that we want to have, to make sure that we have the strong neighborhood presence, but that we really already have a strong corridor, because there are requirements on the neighborhoods to make sure that they are fundraising independently, and not just simply taking the grant money from the city as their only means of sustenance for the programming.
So do you have a relationship also with housing, HCD, and just trying, I think that's a good partnership to be a part of too. They deal with housing and so on. A lot of nonprofits that want to start up businesses are sometimes in sections of homes as well.
Very, very much so. We have a great relationship with DHCD and Commissioner Kennedy. We work a lot, obviously, on their programming contracts that they do. So we're very familiar with their community catalyst grants and things like that. Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We're going to be working on their orientations coming up next week. But those are things where we're definitely going to be working with them on everything we can do to come together. We're big on partnership and making sure that we're working in collaboration so we can really accomplish the joint mission that we have for the city. Another one I have to say is Director Ryer in the Department of Planning. We're really at a point where we've recently lost the Director of Main Streets. We have an interim director at this time, Charlene Nader, and she's doing a fantastic job. And we're really reimagining the program and trying to make sure that we come in line with the Main Street America best practices and standards, so that this can really be the type of program that we want to see as we move forward. And really opening up some of the lines of communication. Unfortunately, in the past, we haven't always had the best communication, so neighbors have felt like they didn't really know what's going on. I'm extremely transparent in letting people know where we are within my abilities and with those limitations, but really trying to make sure they understand the support we're trying to give and intend to give. One of the challenges we've had, we referenced when we were speaking of some of the budget funding, unfortunately, the grant that did stay in mayoralty was the funds that would be applied to Main Streets. We've recently gotten that resolved with the great assistance of BBMR. So we're in the process of trying to get that through to the Board of Estimates for approval so we can get that very, very needed funding. But I've already committed that as we move into FY24, we're going to be switching from the prior quarterly payment model to a one lump sum annual allocation to each of the neighborhoods, so they won't ever be in a position where they're waiting to get the funding from us deep into the fiscal year when it could have been put towards programming and needed resources for the community.
Thank you. And I recently met the person that you just mentioned at a business town hall that her presentation was very good. So looking forward to her continued work. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Going back to Main Street, so that falls under you?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
What are the outstanding payments to each of the existing 8 Main Street programs?
Unfortunately, to the budget delays and then some internal delays in my shop, all of the payments for FY23 are due, and we're working to get that to the board now so that we can make the full payment for what was due to the neighborhoods for FY23.
How did we get to this point?
So in part, the budget issue that I've said previously, and secondarily, I have to take responsibility for people that were under my leadership. There was a lack of communication about the depth of the problem that was taking place with the funding. And once it fully got articulated and came to my attention, we've moved with great haste to get to the point that we're at now to be awaiting the approval. But unfortunately, there were just some internal delays that have gotten us to this point. It definitely is unacceptable. It definitely will not be a situation we find ourselves in again. We've resolved the communication issues. We've had changeover, as I mentioned, as well. So we're really going to be putting the payments to the neighborhoods at the forefront of the program, as it should be, and make that the #1 priority as we move forward with the program, ensuring they get that payment and shortly thereafter that they get their FY24 payment.
Who's the individual who's in charge of Main Streets?
So currently our interim director is Charlene Nater.
Nader?
Nater.
Nater. Can you get me connected with her
Yes.
over email after this meeting? Pennsylvania Avenue, which is in my district, is currently without an executive director. Federal Hill Main Street, which is also in my district, is without an executive director. And these organizations have no way of funding any staff at this point because they rely heavily on, what is it, a $25,000 annual?
The 35,000, yes.
35,000 per annum. These organizations are really struggling. So what plans do we have considering the significant fiscal impact that has been imposed upon them, no fault to their own, to make this right?
So we've submitted it to the Board of Estimates. We're trying to get onto the June 7th agenda. It's currently in audits, and we're just awaiting confirmation from Auditor Pash as to whether that audit review can be completed. There was some delay with getting all the signatures and everything in order for the agreements to get to the submission, but I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to get everything resolved in time to, at worst, walk it on to the June 7th agenda.
So if it makes it to Wednesday, June 7th, what happens next?
Thereafter, upon approval, I believe we should then be in a position to make the payments. I think there's some internal notifications we have to do to get to the funds, but it should happen no later than the 9th. But I'm optimistic we're going to be able to take care of it that same day.
Okay. And then the plan for next fiscal year is to make that $35,000 disbursement up front?
Yes, sir. And the first thing we're going to do is actually we need to revise the agreement because the agreement obviously speaks to the 4 payments, and there's some things in the agreement that I think can just be tightened up, generally speaking. But I'm going to be working on that really over the next couple weeks so that we can get that agreement in place. We can get our form of legal sufficiency so that we're in position to move forward and send those back to all the directors to get those executed so that we can get into the soonest possible BOE in the new fiscal year.
So Ms. Nader, correct? Nater.
Yes.
Ms. Nader's position is as the interim director of the Main Streets program, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Is that her sole function, and or is that position? I don't want to talk about Ms. Nader because I've never met Ms. Nader.
She's wonderful.
I'm sure she's fantastic. The position that Ms. Nader occupies, what is the scope of responsibility of that position? Is it solely Main Streets?
Yes, yeah. So it's solely Main Streets. Everything regarding Main Streets is within her function. So obviously, as we've been discussing, the payment to the Main Street neighborhoods, meeting with them on a regular basis, providing support to the directors, providing support to the individual businesses. One of the things we've done in the past has been resource days to bring in some of our partners at some of the banks, people that can assist on issues that we've heard from the neighborhood that they need assistance on. We'll connect them with those individuals. We're also going to we have a much closer relationship already with the National Main Streets. So we're going to be making sure that we take advantage of all the training resources and expertise that they have to make sure that we've given as much tools as we can and really bringing down those best practices so that the neighborhoods are in the best position to succeed. Because that's what we're really trying to do is to get people in there. And one of the things that, will be in FY2024's budget is to extend the allocation to the neighborhoods, because I think we need to fund them, give them additional funding and put ourselves in a position where the managers can do that in the neighborhoods as their primary function, because so many of our neighborhood managers have a bit of divided attention and also have other things that they need to do to take care of their financial needs. So I'd love to put us in a position where we don't have to have divided attention.
What's that increase in the budget for this year?
I'm sorry?
What's that increase in the budget for this year that you referenced?
For Main Streets?
Yeah.
So there is not a specific allocation of increase in this year's budget for Main Streets. As we were transitioning in the office, there was, we were discussing about different aspects of the program that would potentially land in other places. And unfortunately, as we were having those conversations, it moved beyond the budget submission deadline. And at the time that I submitted the budget, it wasn't, frankly, it was not something that was going to be remaining with the office. So it was not included. There are funds, though, where I am going to be able to, the idea is to transition some positions that were intended to go other places to Main Streets, because it has up until now been a two-person shop, which is wholeheartedly insufficient. So I'm going to be doing everything I can to get more allocation of resources, including bringing in a compliance officer that'll be solely reviewing the submissions of the neighborhoods to make sure that we're staying on track with all of our accounting for the neighborhoods.
Who has a Main Street program besides me? Which one do you have? Waverly. Councilman, do you have one? Do you guys have one?
Working on it in
Park Heights, right. Councilman Schleifer, you don't have one, do you? So it's Waverly, Federal Hill, Pennsylvania Avenue. What are the other five?
So this
Highlandtown is one.
Highlandtown,
Pigtown is one.
yep. Fells Point, I don't think we said
Fells Point is one.
Bel Air Edison,
Bel Air Edison, that's McCrae.
and are we down one? And who else am I? Pigtown, if I didn't say Pigtown?
You said Pigtown.
Okay.
Pigtown's Porter. Highlandtown is McCrae and Cohen. Bel Air Edison is McCrae. Fells Point is Cohen. Waverly is Ramos. Penn Ave and Federal Hill is Costello.
Highlandtown?
Said Highlandtown.
Hamilton, Laurelville.
Hamilton, Laurelville. That's
I was like,
that's
gotta be the
Dorsey.
other one there.
Okay. What's your expectation for how frequently that position should be meeting with the board and executive director of each of the respective 8 Main Street programs?
So right now, we have a collective monthly meeting. The prior director was meeting on a weekly basis with some of the Main Street managers. We've taken a pause on the weekly meetings to focus on getting some things right in-house. And with there being really right now, the focus is a heavy focus of myself and Charlene on really trying to reform this process. So we've been trying to use the precious time that we have to really focus on getting the payment done and shaping up for the next fiscal year. But as soon as we get the payment issues resolved, we're going to be looking to set up a more frequent meeting schedule with them. But we are in frequent communication via email about their needs and things that are going on in the community.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful background. I look forward to being connected with Ms. Nader later today. I'll be reaching out to sit down with her, and hopefully you can join us next week.
Yes.
I want to express my deep concern for the management of the Main Streets program. The appropriation that we are giving towards the 8 Main Street programs is beyond woefully inadequate in order to help those areas be successful. And I think about the disparities amongst the 2 Main Street programs in my district between Federal Hill and Pennsylvania Avenue, and there is an entirely different set of needs and funding structure which is required to help Pennsylvania Avenue be successful for a variety of reasons, which I'm sure you can imagine. So that's something I would really appreciate, Deputy CAO, if you would bring back to the CAO, and Mara, if you'd bring back to Sename and team. We have got to find a way to fund these at a more adequate level, and the current level is not adequate.
And if I may just add, Director Lundy and Laura have been in conversation in terms of moving forward for fiscal '25, understanding the Main Streets program more and looking into the funding there and assessing that. So that is on our radar for sure.
Great. I certainly appreciate it. And, you know, the other piece to this in terms of the management of the program is the type of technical assistance that could be provided to them beyond, you know, what is provided through, I forget what the name of the successor to BDC's TAP program is, but just thinking through what that technical assistance is, because these folks need our support at every turn and corner.
I completely agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the things we've done already is done a needs assessment to each of the main streets to really try to hone in on what they specifically need, because we definitely understand that the communities are different throughout the city. And we can't just say that what are the needs of Fells Point has to be the needs of Waverly. So we're really trying to make sure, or Federal Hill, we're trying to make sure that we're really hearing them out on what they need so we can provide that assistance. And one of the things that we heard early on was just that there's a lack of understanding of where to go sometimes in the city for the assistance that they need, whether it's a food truck that's parked outside of a restaurant that they feel is in violation. So we're gonna be working on giving them a list of the key individuals and people within the city that they should be contacting for these things. And then obviously we'll be liaising and assisting on any of those issues to the extent that we can to move those forward and get to resolution.
Thank you, Director. One last question. When is the disbursement for fiscal '24 expected to be sent out?
I do not have a specific date. I'm going to have to look at the BOE schedule. I've been trying to scale that out of exactly when we'll be there. But the goal is that it would be within, my hope is the first 45 to 60 days of the new fiscal year, that we would definitely have that in place, is dependent upon the submission schedule.
I would appreciate a written commitment from the administration that check will go out by no later than July 31st as a request. So if you could provide me a written commitment by no later than next Tuesday as to when that check will go out. But I think in light of the issues that we've had with paying on time for the past year, this would be an appropriate sign of good faith to our Main Street programs to help set them up on very solid footing as they approach the new fiscal year. And help position them to be as successful as humanly possible.
I agree, and I'll definitely work with the city administrator to ensure you get what you need.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I follow up on that, or just wait for my turn?
Yeah. Yes. This is directly related to Main Streets. Councilwoman Ramos.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me. Just wanted to agree with the chair on the urgency of that matter. And you mentioned that you're trying to get something on the BOE agenda for their disbursement, for their 2023 disbursement. The deadline already passed, so I just want to make sure that we're actually going to see it on June 7th. Many of us have had success working with audits. You're going to do it? Okay. So we will support Mr. Chair in his effort to make sure that this gets done on that, and just keep us posted. And then also, you know, again, we need more funding for the Main Street. So I just wanted to make sure that he looks like he's taking care of it. So that's all good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilwoman. I definitely understand your concern and on the urgency. And I just do want to point out in fairness to Auditor Pash that this has just reached audits. There was a routing issue with the original submission, so it didn't originally get to audits. Our wonderful BOE clerk, Celeste Amato, has worked with me diligently to get everything lined up. So it's now where it needs to be. But I haven't gotten anything saying that they're not the delay. I just want to be clear that they haven't been sitting on this or anything along those lines. They've been very helpful. And I have not, thus far, since I've been in the hearings with you all, I haven't heard from the auditor as to an estimate on the timetable. But I just wanted to be fair, in complete fairness to him, that he has not been sitting on this in any form or fashion. They're working quickly.
Understood, but this has to get there, like, now. So I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Chair will let us know if he needs help from us. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to echo what the chairman was saying. I've had some areas in my district where they were talking about becoming a main streets, and they did not get any responses from the Main Streets office. People have reached out for assistance and just nothing. And so I'm happy to hear that there's new leadership there. And I would just ask that if you can, have whoever this new person is, maybe even to attend one of our council lunches, or certainly I'd be happy to have a one-on-one meeting as well, to just reach out to the council members and just let us know what the office is doing, let us know how it works, because that was never really offered to us or explained to us how that is. So I'm excited to see this restructuring that you're doing, but just want to make sure that we at least get that piece on track so we can go back to our communities and let them know, hey, this is the process if this is something you're interested in, and here's how this could work.
Yes, I would love to join you all for a luncheon with Charlene and be able to go over Main Streets in the near future. We would love to do that and really let you know what the vision is of where we're going.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any other questions? Councilman Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Director Lindy, for joining us. I just had a couple questions. So on page 51 of the budget book, Service 834, it talks about backlogs at the intake process. Can you speak to some of the fixes that you are working to better improve those processes for intake? And it sounds like, from what I could tell, the target for fiscal year 24 is higher than 23. And so is that reflective of, the target is in, like, you think that it's going to take even longer in the following fiscal years, how I interpreted that, unless I'm reading it wrong. Are you anticipating additional issues with application intake to come in the upcoming fiscal year?
Yeah, so I can clarify. One of the things that's enabled us to really streamline that has been the online B2G process. So that's made us significantly quicker. I think with the FY24 measure, we were looking at if we were to expand to Prince George's and Montgomery counties.
Oh, that makes sense.
Which we haven't done the code revision yet. So I think I just adjusted that number to cover if we get that influx, because we have tons of people in those areas that have said that they're very, very interested in working with the city, want to be certified, and contact us repeatedly at outreach. So I think it was just allocating for the fact that if we were to get an influx in applications, it would likely slow us down a bit. From where we are, obviously, in this fiscal year, we haven't gotten there, and as we move into the next one, I'm now confident that the number will remain along the lines of where we are with FY23, because we will also have additional staff that will be allocated to doing the application reviews as well.
Got it.
So it should offset any expansion that we have.
Okay. Now that makes sense. I didn't fully understand that, but the context helps me with that. The other question I had were contractor accountability. Can you describe what tools you currently have with holding contractors accountable for meeting MBE goals, and what are the barriers to increased participation? And I guess what's on the horizon? Well, you described some of that with sort of expansion of the footprint, but.
Yeah, so one of the biggest barriers right now is the lack of our technology. So right now when we do contract compliance, and the limitation on when we do it. So we only do contract compliance when matters are coming before the board. So either an award, an increase in time, an increase in money, or some sort of amendment. So that narrows immediately the pool of contracts that we're talking about in the city. There's ongoing contracts that might have been approved in 2017 that's a long-term capital construction that's still ongoing that we won't have looked at under our current structure. The difference when we get to our digital phase is with B2G and contract compliance, we will have those contracts in the system and be able to see the progress on what they're paying and what subcontractors are on the project. So there's going to be far greater accountability when we get to that model. The delay, because frankly, we were planning on this being something that would be live at the end of last summer or beginning of last fall of '22. It's been really delayed from some of the Workday implementation and configuration issues, and now it's been an issue with the vendor of making sure that we're optimizing the system for what we need in Baltimore to give us the best result. Stephen and I, Deputy Campbell, were just at the B2G user training last week, and that was invaluable for us to really learn the complexity of the system, some additional things that we can bring to Baltimore, and some things that we had overlooked previously. But we were able to see at a national level the way the system's utilized in other cities throughout the country, similarly situated urban cities, and also places that have different dynamics. But that's been very, very beneficial to what we're going to be doing. Once we're in the digital phase, we'll be able to log in and see all of the subcontractors listed and their participation. I believe that the integration is going to be within 30 days. So there may be some payments that happen, post that integration, the payment update, but within a month, we'll understand all of the money that's been paid on a contract and all of the money that's gone to their subcontractors, including minority and women-owned. The issue of increasing capacity is an internal and external problem of the way we view projects and the way we view the way we can get work done. We surely always have a pure scope of work of what we're going to be doing for, let's just say, a recreation center renovation, and there's a significant pool renovation taking place at the same time. There's a lot of things, so we don't have great availability with aquatics for minority and women-owned businesses, but there may be other things at that rec center that are being renovated, such as maybe the HVAC, the electrical. So maybe a chunk of that contract with the pool, there's no availability, but we would want people to look beyond just the pool services to other things that are in that contract. Or even if it's just for the pool, to think about, well, if we need new ceramic tile for that pool and we're redoing it, who can deliver that to us? Sometimes there's an issue of transportation and things like that. Sometimes at work sites, it's a matter of even security, to properly secure the work site 24/7. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you can utilize businesses. What we don't do in the program is tell you specifically how you have to utilize any subcontractor. They just need to perform the code mandated commercially useful function. So they've got to be doing something that's within their own skill, experience, and expertise to benefit the contract. So we really leave it open, and a lot of what we've tried to do is do that educational campaign of letting the prime contractors and subcontractors understand that it doesn't have to always just be the pure scope of the work in the contract. We'd love for people to get that work purely in the scope, but think about the ancillary things that go with it, including on large construction, you need fuel for the machines that are going to be there. And like I said, transportation, and even on really large projects, you may have a kickoff meeting that you need to cater. And you can use the MWBE cater. So it's just really thinking as broadly as possible about all the services that go into it. And the other bottom line thing is availability. We have to develop more businesses and certify more businesses that can do those services. Sometimes it's as simple as a business that they don't recognize that they could be certified for those codes, and they do that work maybe in Howard County or somewhere else. They just didn't realize they could be certified with the city. So a lot of it's just our outreach, our messaging. One of the great things we have in the system now of B2G is we have the ability to email all of our certified businesses or target in particular people. So when we get to things like asphalt paving, if we had a project, we could target all the people that are certified in those codes, make them aware of the opportunity to try to get better uptick of people that are interested in our contracting opportunities. So we've revised the website to more readily list bid opportunities and the connections to get to Workday and register in the system, but also also, one of the things we're going to be doing as we continue to staff up is emailing our directory about those opportunities to make sure that the people that are certified in those things are applying and going after the RFPs, the RFQs, the RFIs to get into the city environment of doing business with us. Another thing we're going to try to do is really doing, one of the things we're doing that's coming up soon, June 15th, is our procurement fair. We've brought together a lot of the agencies. We've worked very closely with BSID on this and procurement to make sure that we are able to do some aspect of forecasting so these small businesses can really anticipate what is coming down the pipeline in FY24 from the city. And we're hoping that that will also build capacity because they'll be able to plan, have knowledge of that, and work towards being able to get involved in those projects. The other thing I'll say that we can do, that we're trying to do as a city, and we've been working with Director Garbark on this, with the infrastructure dollars that are going to be coming in, is really evaluating what our requirements are on contracts and questioning and pushing on our insurance and bonding needs to make sure that they're not serving as a barrier to entry for minority and women-owned businesses and small businesses generally. Because that is a finding from the disparity study that oftentimes, based on our outreach, that is considered a barrier and that sometimes it's beyond what we truly need for the project. And if we can,
like the amount of insurance the contractor has to have, okay, sorry, go ahead.
yes, but some of those flow down to the subcontractor as well. And for the smaller businesses, it's sometimes difficult to meet those requirements. And I think we have to really do a thorough examination of whether the requirements need to be so high and if we could really bring in more businesses in doing so. And that's a race and gender neutral solution that everybody, of course, would benefit if we had lower requirements for bonding and insurance. But we have to obviously balance that out against the interests of the city, especially legally, when we're taking on these projects. That is the protection that we have if we do run into some problem along the way, that we do have sufficient bonding to know that they could come in and finish up the project, or insurance is available as needed if we need to get into any sort of claim situation.
And figure.
In addition, Councilman, you mentioned enforcement and how we hold contractors accountable. Prior to the budget enhancement that we will be receiving in FY24, we have only had one investigator. So we have not been able to conduct site visits, and we have not been able to check in on sites to see specifically who is on site, who is working, and to make sure that MBEs and WBEs are in fact participating on these contracts where they're supposed to be. And that has handicapped us in a way because we have become more reactive instead of proactive. We're not going to the site and discovering. We are being told after someone says they're trying to remove me from a contract, or I haven't been paid in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. And so staffing up properly will give us the ability, along with technology and all the other things Director Lundy spoke to, it will give us the ability to be proactive in seeing where we need to be and where we need to enforce the rules with our prime contractors in the way they treat MBEs and WBEs.
And can you remind me, with the budget enhancement, how many additional inspectors will that come with?
I believe the number is 4 additional investigators we're going to be allocating. One of the things that's going to be beneficial, though, with the increases in ease of use and getting that data in the system, is also going to allow us to be able to not always have to send somebody out and not take as much time on compliance review. So our compliance officers, although they're not going to be investigators, they're going to be way more involved with our Bureau of Procurement buyers and contract administration to make sure that they're very much in the loop on what's going on these projects. And we're also going to be bringing on a private development coordinator to look after all of these other projects that receive city dollars, so thus have goals, make sure that we're really in touch with those people throughout the project. So again, we don't hear about problems after the fact.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, please be brief. You're on the agenda for June 7th. You may consider reaching out to the comptroller's office to gain a better understanding of some of the issues and how those can be avoided in the future. But I'll leave that to you for your consideration.
Thank you so much,
Ramos.
Mr. Chairman. I truly appreciate your efforts in getting that accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for making that happen. I appreciate it. Any support you need from the rest of us, please let us know. So, Director, do you I saw here, now that we know that Main Streets comes after you, there's something in the budget says recommended budget includes $250,000 in casino funding for Baltimore Main Streets, particularly Park Heights, or including, or in addition to Park Heights and lighting and safety improvements. Where's that specifically going, that $250,000?
Correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe that's all funds that are going to be going to Park Heights development.
No, it says
Is this
casino
the-
funding for Baltimore Main Streets, Park Heights, and lighting and safety improvements.
This is casino funding. It's specifically, I'm just confirming, the Pimlico Local Impact Aid. So it's going to that area around Park Heights, yes. But we can get more details for you.
So it's not going to Baltimore Main Streets, it's just going to Pimlico?
Yeah,
And then
but-
Park Heights area?
I believe that is a typo.
So that's a typo?
Yeah, it is PCDA funding that we're going to be assisting to do more development in Park Heights and providing additional improvements besides the position that's going to be dedicated there as well.
Okay, because one of the things that's really also needed, and I would imagine and hope that the Main Streets program is going to start working with BDC in a lot more coordinated fashion. I have like 4 businesses on Greenmount Avenue that can't get open because there's a gap. Because the darn landlords are not paying for the build out, and so the businesses have to do it, and there's a gap. And so I'm sure you've heard of this already when you did your assessments. And so there has to be a better partnership there with BDC, with mayor's office, whoever, to get more money into the Main Streets, not just for their salaries, which I agree is top priority, but like we just need more money to get these businesses open.
I completely agree, and I think there has been some delay on some of those grants that were coming from BDC.
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking further into that. My understanding has just been it's been a volume issue for the review, just in terms of the amount of review that was required to do proper compliance to get to that point. But I'm going to be looking in further, but those funds aren't specifically coming from my office, but I am going to definitely be partnering further with Colin and all of BDC.
Yeah, I actually don't think there's any money allocated for this kind of thing, which is the sort of build out piece. That's why I was kind of excited to see this, to see if it's possibly, what can happen. And one of my requests is $2 million for Greenmount Avenue for that, the businesses to be able to complete their build out. And then the other question, totally shifting, well, not totally shifting, but how many folks, especially that you have now and those speak Spanish, and are you going to be making an effort to hire bilingual?
Yes. So our interim director, Charlene, she is bilingual in Spanish. She's fluent. She's so she is a great asset to be able to have that out in the business community as we're
She's
building.
great. I've met her. She's wonderful. So she's Boricua too. So I'm
Thank
all
you.
excited about that. But
As we build out, we will be keenly aware of the need to make sure that we have Spanish speakers on the team as much as we can as we're evaluating.
not just on
applicants.
Main Streets though. I think
Oh, no,
mostly for
I mean,
the
generally,
business development.
Yes, not just limited to Main Streets at
Yeah,
all. This would be in our general positions, making sure that we have bilingual speakers to the extent we can, and it's something I'm looking at as I'm evaluating even resumes now to try to make sure that we're not, that we're being as inclusive as we can of all members of the community, and that we have people that are available to be able to interact with them in a way that they can understand and that they're going to be able to take advantage of the resources. And we're going to be looking at partnering even further with the local Hispanic Chamber, and also doing more educational outreach events that are focused on that community, because it's a community that we know we need to do more for, and ensuring that there's proper access and equity within the city to the resources.
I'll follow up with you on that. And
Okay.
then I have a couple of other questions around the disparity study, but I can follow up with you separately on that, because I would like to try to get Amari's, law back online. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? We are now in recess. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Appreciate your staff.